Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of MSAHA Basketball Weekly. I am Trellis Williams, and joining me, of course, is our co-host, Ollie Hammonds, beat writer for TSJW Network, representing the Laurel Nighthawks, plays for the Laurel Nighthawks as well. Ollie, man, thank you for coming back on again.
Hey, I'm excited to talk about this action-packed week we got coming up, and the last week was pretty darn action-packed too. It's gonna be exciting.
For sure. So this past week we had a few games. We had Monday night. We had the Scott County Flames defeated the Mount Zion Lions 80-37. That's a big old margin. 80 points from the Scott County Flames. They're 5-2 in the conference. They're sitting pretty nicely there. What are you seeing from that team?
I think they got new life. Coming down to that JV team, they've got new life. They got more hope, and you can see it in the way that they play. They got more passion for it, and they're doing really, really well in the 16U boys, and that's a surprising score for anybody. But from what we've seen in the years past from Scott County, that's very surprising. But I think that shows how much they're into it this year.
Yeah. And so then, of course, we also had Monday night. We had the Muddy River Counselors, who are undefeated. They defeated the Jackson Victors 47-24. Had a start that was a little bit close, then the Counselors were able to pull away and get that win. And so, yes, they were able to keep that one as well. They also played the Laurel Nighthawks the next night. That was a really close one. It came down 42-35 was the final score. The Nighthawks kept it close, and they had to fight to the end to get that win. But the Counselors still 9-0. But the Nighthawks, they know that they can fight with the top two seeds, because the top two seeds, they had 2 single-digit losses to them. What are you thinking about that?
I think Laurel's really progressing throughout the season. They've played two top, like you just said, they played the top 2 seeds, and they played them hard both times. It came down to kind of the last quarter. There's never really a comfortable moment for the top 2 seeds in those games. So I think they could take a lot away from that. Me as a player, I'm certainly not upset about the results from last night. We played hard. You guys, Muddy River, you guys played hard too. The ball bounced Muddy River's way, but it was a good game.
Yeah, and so talking about the Counselors a little bit, so the Counselors 9-0, now about to take on the PCA Paladins, who are 6-0 in conference, 10-1 overall. But PCA, they defeated the Hattiesburg Forerunners 47-29, so they took care of business down in Hattiesburg. That's going to be upcoming. We'll talk about that a little later. But what are the Counselors looking like to you in the 16U right now?
I think the 2 main players that I enjoy watching from that team is, they got some – Muddy River's got some good players. Son Michael Williams, this Monday and Tuesday was just on fire in all the games that he played in. But I think the 2 players that I enjoy watching the most is the Sanders brothers. They're scrappy on defense, and yes, they'll give you double-digit points every night. But that's not really what I like to watch them do. What I like to watch them do is play defense, and they'll get in there. They'll get in there with the best of them, and they're great rebounders, and they can jump out of the gym. They're great basketball players, and that's really kind of a glimpse into Muddy River's future. And I think this team they're poised for a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, and so moving into a little bit of 18U girls action, there's only one game. PCA defeating the Hattiesburg Forerunners 28-15. Forerunners kept it close with PCA. PCA is the defending champions. They're looking for a three-peat, even though the Laurel Lady Hawks are looking pretty good this season. What are you thinking on that front, on the 18U girls front, with PCA getting that win?
I think that I look more at Hattiesburg for that. Hattiesburg, they're having a not a great season. Conference-wise, they're 1-6. Overall, they're 1-8. To make a game that close against the defending champs and the number 2 seed, who, that's a big-time moral victory if I'm Hattiesburg. If I'm PCA, you just got to keep plugging away. You got to keep improving. They got pushed down pretty hard by Laurel, but you can never be comfortable with where you are. And I think they learned that when they played Laurel. And I think this game is a big testament to the fact that they're going to keep progressing.
Yep. Also had 2 18U boys games this week. Both of them involved the Counselors. Counselors defeating the Jackson Victors 67-45 in Raymond. That was a big win for the Counselors. The first time they had beaten the Victors in 18U. I know you watched that game. What did you think from it? What did you get from it?
Well, I got a few points. I feel like what won that game for Muddy River was hustle. I talked about the Sanders brothers. I can't tell you how many times Jackson would come down with a rebound, and one of the Sanders brothers would come in and strip the ball from him. Any loose ball, Muddy River was on it. They just were hungry for it. They really, really wanted it. And my second point that I really see is that it kind of was the perfect storm for Jackson, right? Nobody really played all that great. Their best player, if you're looking at points, was Colin Crosby, correct? He had 13 points, but he only shot 26% from the field. And that's just not going to cut it if you're Jackson. But, I mean, nobody really had a good night. So, I mean, you can just chalk that one up as the perfect storm, right? But I think the big divider in that game, the big key player was son Michael Williams. I mean, he was on fire. I mean, he got any and everything he wanted. One time, I remember he dribbled down the court. He stole the ball, dribbles down the court, behind the back, goes down to the lane, goes up. 3 guys are on him. He contorts his body in midair and nails a layup. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And he's been a great player for Muddy River. And I think him, the Sanders brothers, all this 16U team can show Muddy River fans what their future is going to be like. And it's really interesting. I think what put Jackson behind a lot is that they started missing threes, right? They started missing wide open threes, and that's kind of their game. And I think they got in their own heads, and they hesitated a little too much. They're good ball players, and if you start hesitating, I don't care who you are, you're going to start losing confidence, and you're not going to play as well. But Jackson has got to keep their heads in the game all the time.
Yeah. And another thing I saw from that game is that you had the beginning of the game, talking about 13-13 at the end of the first quarter, close ball game. Really, right there at the end of that first half, the Counselors started making that run, took a 33-25 lead, and then the second half, it just spilled out. The Counselors were going at it. So it was a good win for the Counselors. Definitely had them feeling good. The next night, though, taking on the Laurel Nighthawks in Laurel, just a tough ball game. The Laurel Nighthawks played a great game, and you know the Counselors just were a little bit flat to at least in that second quarter for sure. And the Laurel Nighthawks took the win 70-55. Big win for the Nighthawks as they had their last conference game they had lost to the PCA Paladins, so they were looking to bounce back from that. The Counselors were riding off the win the night before. Good win for the Laurel Nighthawks. What did you see from that?
I think that was probably one of the best games Laurel's played all year long in terms of passing, rebounding, and defense. Their passing was very crisp. If there's a team you want to play to see how good your passing is, it's Muddy River. That's their style of play. They like to jump passes, and they like to go down and score the easy layups after steals. They didn't do that much against Laurel because Laurel's passing was on point. And I think this game was very crucial for the Nighthawks to show them, they still can win. Just get up, dust yourself off after that PCA loss and move on. I think I keep talking about these 3 people, but son Michael Williams and the Sanders brothers really are showing Muddy River people what their future is going to look like. Son Michael Williams dropped 27 points after having played the 16U game against Jackson, 18U game against Jackson, and then 16U game against the Laurel Nighthawks. Comes into the 18U boys against the Laurel Nighthawks and still drops 27 points. He hit 7 3-pointers. I mean, that is impressive any night, but especially in that kind of run where that was his 4th game in 2 days. And the Sanders brothers, their defense is just, it's insane to watch.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like the key for the Nighthawks, even though Kai Welch, he was not the top scorer for the Nighthawks. As a matter of fact, there were 2 people above him for the Nighthawks. Silas Ensign had 20, Jacob Moore, he had 14. Kai Welch got in there and he got rebounds, right? Kai Welch, I know he only got 12 points, but Welch really affected the game defensively and on rebounds. He kind of never let Chris Purnell get comfortable throughout the night, and Kai really boxed out well and got a bunch of rebounds. And so that's I think Kai really was a big time divider in that game.
Yeah, for sure. And also another big thing that I noticed in the difference between the Counselors Victors, Counselors Nighthawks was the rebounding. And just like you're saying, in the game against the Victors, the Counselors were able to pull down 57 rebounds. That's a whole lot of rebounds. In the Nighthawks game, don't know the exact number, but definitely less. It just was a tougher night for the Counselors rebound, and the Nighthawks were able to really capitalize on that. But the Nighthawks do that against everybody. The Nighthawks, very good rebounding team. As a matter of fact, in the 16U game as well, they did a good job rebounding, and that's what kept that game really close. Because what the Counselors like to do, which is get offensive rebounds and get things moving again, they weren't able to do it as much with the big fellas down low. But so yeah, that wraps up this past week. We had just a few games since we just started for 2022. The upcoming week got a lot of games coming up. The upcoming week. But first, let me tell you a little bit about the MSAHA League Pass. So the League Pass has most games, most conference games from the MSAHA. All teams have multiple games on there. Please go on there and pick up your subscription for the season. And if not, you can go on there and purchase individual games as well. So if you have a certain game and you go out there and you drop 30 in the game, you might want the video. So go buy it, man. It's right there on the League Pass, most likely. So go check that out. TSJWnetwork.net/watch. You'll be able to find the button to get on to the League Pass. So now we're coming up to the upcoming week. We've got a few games starting off Saturday. The PCA Paladins going up to Jackson, Mississippi, and they're going to have a doubleheader. They're going to take on the Counselors in the morning and then the Victors in the afternoon. So let's start off talking about that Counselors and PCA game. That's kind of tough on the scheduling. You gonna doublehead like that?
It may be the day that you rolled your ankle last night at church playing basketball, right?
You're like,
It's gonna be a tough day for Jackson, for PCA, excuse me. PCA in the morning for Muddy River, that's a big test, right? Muddy River and PCA really play very similarly. They rely on the steal and the three, and I think this is going to be a good game for Muddy River to see, how good that they are, like really see who are we, right? And I think for PCA it's the same way. You got to gut this out, right? You got to play two games. It's not impossible. I mean, PCA plays in a lot of tournaments, but it's tough when it's that stiff a competition. So, it's also Jackson's time to see what they're made of. It's going to be a tough day for PCA and an interesting day for Muddy River and Jackson.
Yeah, and the Counselors, off that loss to Laurel, they had a win against Jackson, had a loss to Laurel. They still feel good about themselves as a team because even in the Laurel game, they went down by 20 at halftime. They were able to make it a 15-point loss. They fought hard to the end, didn't roll over or anything like that. So they still can be competitive. They're gonna have to see, just like you're saying, they're gonna have to see what they're made of against the PCA Paladins. I am interested in seeing that matchup because last year the Counselors and PCA only played once, and also it's just a lot different of a situation. The Counselors have gotten a lot better. PCA's has a different team. Their team's looking pretty good so far this year, but they've got a different team, so it is a different matchup. It's gonna be something new.
I feel like a big divider in that game could also be Chris Purnell, right? Yeah. I know I said that for the Jackson game, but it really is. I think he would be a big divider because when you look at the two teams, PCA's got a couple of big guys, but nobody with his weight. He's just a big human who can get down and get rebounds. He's got to be aggressive, I feel like, against PCA on rebounding and getting down low, take layups. I watched that Jackson game. To me, he shot too many jump shots, right? He needs to realize he's a big guy. He needs to get down low and score points down low. If he does that against PCA, Muddy River's got a great chance of winning that game.
Yeah. Also, another thing too is I'm eyeing that PCA and Jackson game because especially after PCA is going to get that game against the Counselors. I mean, the thing about the Victors is that nobody needs to start sleeping on them after that loss to the Counselors. Because that was a tough game for them, but those guys can shoot. I mean, you got Nash Spicer, you got Jude Williams, Colin Crosby is a very good player for them as well. And then if they're able to get Dan Greet back, that was a tough loss for a while, but if they're able to get Dan Greet back, I mean, they're a contender again. So there's no reason to start sleeping on them. So it should be an interesting game on Saturday. I don't think Dan Greek's going to play on Saturday. I'm pretty sure he's not, actually. But that should be an interesting game, especially after PCA plays a game.
Yeah, we're talking about big men. Colin Crosby against Muddy River. He only shot 26 from the field, right? But I feel like all of his shots were very high quality, down low shots. I talk about down low all the time. I love watching quality down low play, and Colin does that. Colin Crosby does that. I feel like you cannot take. Well, Muddy River played fantastically. They got that win. I think even if Jackson was playing great that day, Muddy River would have won that ball game. But you really cannot take that game too seriously if you're PCA for Jackson's performance. That's not Jackson. They're not people who get beat by 20 points. That's not going to be how they're going to play on Saturday either. I mean, PCA's got to watch out.
Yeah, for sure. That was an outlier game for the Victors. That was their worst loss of the season. Prior to that, their worst loss was 11. And so that's a big difference. Definitely not a normal game for the Victors there. Another game that's happening later next week. We got Thursday night. Have the Meridian Flyers and the Jackson Victors. That'll be the Flyers' senior night. It'll be in Hickory. They'll be matching up. That should be interesting. Last time it was a 67-59 win for Meridian, and so it's hard to really tell between those two teams because both of them they don't play the same way, but they've got some similarities to them where their big guys are like kind of tall and they're tall and slender. They're not like as much like size as like the Nighthawks bigs like Kyle Welch and Caleb Jenkins or Chris Purnell or something. It's more of like a tall and slender kind. But I mean, the thing about the Flyers is that they've been looking good in the past few conference games. At the beginning of the game against the Counselors that ended up stopping because the floor was wet. I mean, Isaiah Davis had hit 3 3-pointers. I mean, he was playing well. And in the Victors game, he had 10 points in the first quarter. And then obviously Elliott Tulip can score a whole bunch of points as well. What are you thinking heading into that game?
Meridian really is a team that with the first 2 times that you play or the first few games that they play, they're not going to be the same at the end of the season. They always progress. Always. In 16U, 14U, 18U, girls or boys, they're always going to progress. That just is a testament to their coaching staff, right? I don't think that it's going to be – I think it's going to be a close game, but I feel like Meridian's got a bit of the upper hand. I think they've got a more balanced team than Jackson does, but, you can't really I can't call the game. I mean, I'm not going to say that Meridian's going to win that game, but to me, I think the edge is to Meridian, but I don't know if he's going to win that game, honestly.
Yeah, that should be interesting. Also, another thing too, Tupelo Titans and the Laurel Nighthawks. That will be a matchup down in Laurel, and that is this Saturday. I think that's this Saturday as well. And the Tupelo Titans, they haven't won a game yet this season in the 18U, but they're a growing organization as well. It's their second year as an organization, their first year in the MSAHA. So I think they're doing well. I mean, especially considering the fact that they're building. I just know when we went up there, I went up there to do the Counselors and Tupelo Titans game. Just a lot of energy. They've got a lot of energy. They've got a mascot. They've got cheerleaders. I mean, So I mean, they really go all out. So that should be a good game. That should be a interesting matchup there. What are you thinking?
Tupelo, you're right. They're doing very, very good job. It's the second year. I mean, your second year, you're still trying to find out what's your culture, what's your style of play. And the best part about those first years of an organization is to have fun, right? You need to have fun. You need to find fun in any way that you can. And if it's having a mascot, have a mascot, right? I think that Tupelo's, if I'm not mistaken, this is the second time to play Laurel this year. So this is, it's going to be interesting. Tupelo's going to get some chance to play against some stiff competition. Laurel's going to get their younger guys are going to get a chance to play some varsity tempo ball. I mean, I don't care how good you are. If it's varsity tempo, it's fast. I don't care what your record is. So it's going to be a fun game to be a part of.
Oh yeah. So then, of course, we've got some 16U action. We've got the Mount Zion Lions will play the Muddy River Counselors. That'll be the second time those two teams have played. The Mount Zion Lions right now they're holding on to that 8th spot there in the conference. Counselors are number 1 now. That will be after the 16U game against PCA on Saturday, and that right there is probably one of the games of the week. I mean, what's interesting is that we don't usually do 16U games as being game of the week, but that is would be a game of the week because you're talking about 2 undefeated teams in conference. The Counselors are 9-0 overall too, and the PCA Paladins are 10-1 overall. So that's like a heavyweight matchup there at B Hall. What are you thinking heading into that game? That's a huge game.
It's going to be very competitive, very scrappy too. Very scrappy. I think it's going to be fun to see how Sun Michael handles, because the thing about the two teams is they defend the perimeter well too. Not only do they shoot from the perimeter well, they defend the perimeter well. And I think it's going to be neat to see how Sun Michael deals with that. It's going to be interesting to see how PCA deals with Muddy River's defense. I don't think that there's another team in the conference like Muddy River where the smallest guy on the court gets 13 rebounds a night,
Yeah,
So it's going to be fun and interesting to see how that game ends out. I feel like, Muddy River is just riding high right now. They are a great team, and I think they got the edge. And if I had to make a pick right now, my pick would be Muddy River for that game.
Yeah, should be interesting though. Should be close because I was, you look at the schedules from both the teams and the teams that they've played and the wins that they've gotten. It's very similar margins that they beat the teams by, and so it's just very it should be a very good game. So I'm looking forward to that one. That's Saturday morning. That should be all those games. The Counselors PCA, the whole go there should be on the TSJW network. That'd be Counselors TV there. So definitely go ahead and subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get notified every time a stream goes up. Another thing too, last game that we're talking about, or another game that we're talking about this week, the Scott County Flames and the Hattiesburg Forerunners. Really, when it comes to seeding and stuff, the Scott County Flames are in the 3 seed. They're 5-2. They're pretty solidly in there for right now. As the 4th is Laurel Nighthawks. They're at 4-4. So they have two losses of a difference there. But Hattiesburg, though they are the 7th seed, again, we've talked about this before, they're one of those sleeper teams. They can really compete out there. So what are you thinking about that Scott County and Hattiesburg game? That would be down at Hattiesburg.
Hattiesburg has to bring their A game, right? Scott County, they're a fast team. Like I said in the beginning, they got new life. They've got just that fire in their belly. They're ready to win. They're ready to win now. They're making a run at the championship. There's no more next year for them. This year is the year that they want to win that 16U championship. And Hattiesburg, this is going to be a test to see how serious they are about it. So it's going to be fun and interesting. But right now, the upper hand is to Scott County.
Yeah. So because Scott County Flames, he just came off of scoring 80 points in the game. That's real good. You got the guys like John Crenshaw, who's been doing very well. He's had a great season. And he's only in 9th grade, so that you have some future there if you're Scott County. You just want to be able to build some have some more players come through and stuff. Because they're just not deep. Is this depth has been the problem with them, but the starting five is good. They got Ellis Bowles, got Wesley Bell, got Cole Mitchell. You got you a squad that can play and obviously can score. And they want that. They want the game to be like that. They want the game to be fast like that as well. So that brings us to our game of the week, and that will be the Meridian Flyers at the Laurel Nighthawks on January 11th. That will be Tuesday night. And so that should be an interesting game. The last meeting between those teams was on November 2nd in Hickory. Laurel won that matchup 71-51. And so, since then, Meridian has definitely had played better. since then, because that was a tough game. That was their first conference game, so that was a tough one there. And this will be Meridian's first MSAHA game of 2022, so they'll be getting back in conference action. What are you thinking about that matchup?
I feel like the keys to the game for both teams, the first key to me for Meridian is to get Isaiah Davis involved in the first quarter. Right, the first quarter, he's got to get involved, and not on the perimeter, not with jump shots. He needs to get involved down low, because for Elliott Tulip to get his opportunity on the perimeter, they have to have Laurel down paying attention to Isaiah Davis. So they have to get him involved in the first. I feel like their second key of the game is do not get out-rebounded. You get out-rebounded by the Laurel Nighthawks, you will lose the game. Right? I mean, they're big bodies. It's a tall order, right? But you cannot get out-rebounded. And I feel like the last key of the game for Meridian is to shut down Kai Welch. Kai Welch is such a good player down low that he'll have what feels like just a quiet night because he's doing his job, and you look up and he scored 20 points, right? So you have to stop Kai Welch. I feel like for the Nighthawks, key number one is to shut down Elliott Tulip. Elliott Tulip is really kind of their offense. So if you shut down Elliott Tulip, you shut down their offense. So you have got to shut him down. Cannot let him shoot the three that much. If anything, give up the drive. Let him come into those big bodies right down low. Do not let him shoot the three and get hot behind the three-point line. The second key to the game for Laurel, I feel like, is rebound putback. When Laurel gets the rebound, sometimes they have a tendency to come down and want to put the ball on the court. They need to get the rebound, and they need to go straight back up, right? They don't need anything fancy. They don't need any fancy moves. Like we saw last night, when Laurel plays just fundamental basketball, right? They're not looking to make plays to get on a highlight reel. When they play fundamental basketball, they play their best game of the season. And I feel like that's what they have to do on the boards against Meridian. And the third thing I feel like that they need to do is to take advantage of inexperienced ball handlers. Meridian's got a lot of experienced they got a lot of experienced players, but not a lot of experienced ball handlers, right? And they need to use the quick hands of Jacob Moree, the lanky arms of Silas Ensign. They need to take advantage of inexperienced ball handlers, and if they can do that, they'll win that game.
Yeah, and what I think about is that it's interesting that you say about Isaiah Davis getting involved down low. What was interesting about last time the teams played against each other is that Isaiah Davis finished with 5 points. Ever since then, Isaiah Davis has been scoring the ball a lot. And one thing that he's added, because it's interesting you said about the perimeter, one thing he's really added is that good three-point shot. So he's actually been hitting three-pointers and stuff, and that's really tough to guard if you're Laurel. The only problem with that is that if you do miss, you don't have the 6'6" body inside to get the rebound. Yeah. And so that's one of those shots that you're like, you really want to make it, But at the same time, though, you do have guys crashing for boards too, so it should be interesting too. Last time, we said Isaiah Davis had 5 points. Elliott Tulip had 21 points. And you would think, that's a lot. Now, it seemed pretty quiet. Because Elliott Tulip could score in the 30s. Pretty easily. Yeah, easily. So, 21 points, it was actually very good defense there by Laurel, and they were able to win the game by 20 on that. And so, really, if you're Laurel, you're probably looking for a similar type outcome. But definitely, one thing I did agree with what you were saying, too, was that Isaiah Davis getting involved early is definitely important. Getting Isaiah Davis involved throughout that game will definitely be important. But if you're Laurel, you just need to really just do the same things you've been doing, especially rebounding-wise, just like you're saying. But that should be an interesting game. And actually, we plan on going down to Laurel, Mississippi to call that one. So that should be streamed live on the TSJW network. So definitely. And again, I said it earlier. Again, subscribe, turn your notifications on. That'll get you up to date with all that's going on. But I think that'll wrap up our MSAHA Basketball Weekly. So Ollie, man, I thought it was another good show, man. Appreciate you doing it with me.
I can't wait for next week.
For sure. And thank you for joining us. So that is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Podcast for this week. So please tune in next week, Friday mornings at 10 a.m. That's when we post. I guess that'd be 11 a.m. Eastern, but I don't know what people who in the Eastern time zone are watching this. But hey, if you are, we appreciate your viewership. We appreciate your viewership for sure. Thank you for joining us. I'm Trellis Williams. We out.